All right. Well, thanks, Mary, for joining us. I know you mentioned you were working, so I don't know how much you're going to be able to participate, but I do kind of wanted to ask you a few questions and see if you had any questions from last week, last week's class, and if anything came up for you that you encountered. Oh, look, we're getting someone else. We'll wait just a second.
Well, and I can share too, even though I'm a educator, I mean, I still learn stuff. So I took a look at some of our pet expenses and trying to determine whether or not we can use maybe some generic brands for litter and maybe not so much food, but I guess I had been aware of what we were spending, but maybe not that aware. So I was kind of surprised of how much we were spending on pet supplies. So that's something that I'm going to look at my house.
Great, Marilyn.
And my goal last week was to cut down on my coffee spending, and I have done so. I have been able to make more of my coffees at home. So
it is amazing how, just looking at those simple things can really make a difference in your budget. All right. Well, we will go ahead and get started. So thank you and welcome to session 2 for Where Does Your Money Go? And if you haven't got a chance to see session 1, please do tune in because kind of session 2 builds on session 1's class. So definitely feel free to view that again. I'm Molly Marshall with Jackson County HHS, and I'm here with my 2 partners in crime, Marilyn Sink and Sarah Richer, and we are ready to get started. Okay. So our session 2 objectives, we would like to increase the knowledge of our money management practices that helps to increase our financial control. We want to focus on adopting new habits that create personal financial stability and really put into practice things as planning for occasional expenses, tracking expenses, and developing the savings spendings plan, also known as a budget. So from last week, one of our homework assignments was to think about tracking expenses, and Sarah did send out a copy of this. So this is the tracking expenses envelope. So if you didn't get a chance to, look at it from last week, because I don't know about you guys, but weeks go by like this anymore. So feel free to pull that email back up. But it's basically just an envelope to track your expenses. What we recommend is write down all the money that you spend, where it goes to and the amount, and do that for the course of a week. And then after that week is over, you'll be able to transfer that information onto this sheet, the tracking expenses. And we will send this out through email, so you'll have a paper copy if you would like to go that route. What's good about this is you can see the different categories where we might spend our money. So we have food that we buy to eat at home. We have eating out, rent and utilities, transportation. So this can not only be your car payment, but gas, car maintenance, any medical bills, household supplies, so on and so forth. So we do have an example that we want to show that basically just so you can get an idea of what this could look like if you do your own tracking. So, think about for a week's time, I think it is pretty accurate. Look at the food amount that you would spend for eating at home, and then all those smaller amounts for eating out. So Sarah mentioned that, she was going to try to make more coffee at home. That $3.53 that you see in the eating out category could easily be a cup of coffee. So if you do that over the course of a week every day, that can really add up. So this is just a great example of being able to track your expenses, and then we will take this information and put it more into the spending savings plan. I do want to point out at the bottom under the other categories, phone has gone here. So if you have a phone bill that you pay on a monthly basis, this also is good to track. Credit card, and then like for instance, in this example, there was an overdraft fee. So that's $70, which could definitely add up if we had a couple of those through the course of a few months' time. So once you have your expenses converted over on this sheet, one other thing that we want to think about, oh, hold on, Mary has a comment. Okay, great. So Mary did get these downloaded from last week, but hasn't gotten started, and that's perfectly understandable. That's kind of the goal of this class, is to give you the tools to get started. So excellent. The first step is downloading and printing them off. All right, next slide, please. All right, so this is another handout that you will be sent through the email. What I like about this is it's called Occasional Expenses, and it really gets you thinking about those expenses that tend to pop up that we don't always have a plan for. So it lists out every month of the year, and then the expenses, that probably a lot of us spend money on that we don't really think about until it's time to go buy the item. Things like holidays, birthdays. I was thinking about it for me and my family. Our birthdays are August, September, October, November. So those are the main months of our birthdays. And then what do we have after that? December. So, there's a lot of spending that goes on for birthdays in our family. So having this information in place now is good to know. So what I would like you to think about is some other categories: school expenses. So, those probably come up in the summertime. Car insurance, car license, like your license plates. Again, I know that for me, that's July. So that always hits in the summer. Taxes, like property taxes, are coming up due. Here in Jackson County, we pay those in May and November. Any membership dues you have, that could be a gym membership. I would even put like magazine subscriptions. Sometimes we renew those regularly. And clothes also can go in this category as well. So if you have any of these occasional expenses, think about, for example, what you would spend maybe on holidays. And so you would put that, I would even include it maybe some in November, thinking about like Thanksgiving. If you host a Thanksgiving meal, that could be a lot of added expense, right, to purchase all that food. And then any gifts that you might buy for December. So you would put those totals in that column. And then at the very far right where you see total, you would add up all of the expenses for each month right there. And then at the very bottom where it says grand total, that you're going to total in your total amount and then divide that by 12. So that's because there's 12 months in a year. And that's the amount of money that you need to set aside each month to pay for those occasional expenses. So think about it. I know when I was a kid, my mom had a Christmas club account. So each month she would put, $10 or $20 in her Christmas club account, which was at the bank. It was like a savings account. And then that money went toward buying Christmas gifts. So this is kind of like that, in that you're budgeting, for the whole year with a certain amount of money that you save each month. Any questions on occasional expenses or comments? Maybe there's an occasional expense that's not on here that you think, oh, I just thought of something. One thing that's not on here is like vacations. I think vacations could easily be included to start planning for that. Okay, there's no questions, then I believe Sarah is going to explain our next few slides.
All right. So now that you have an idea of how you've been spending your money, and if you've not used the other forms yet, once you have those completed, we're going to be able to transfer that information to create our spending savings plan. So the savings spending plan is going to be what works for you. And Mary said in the chat that she is going to start this by hand, but asking for a recommended budget program that you can use on your computer. So the forms that we provide are fillable, and Marilyn's pulled up the form for me here. So you can see what this is going to look like when we email it to you. I can't think of an actual download form of a budget, but I know there are many budgets out there when it comes to having like an online version of a savings spending plan. Dave Ramsey, I know, has one. The Mint also produces a budget or spending savings plan that you can use online. That's a great question, though. If you have a smartphone, you might check into some of the apps out there. And didn't know if we had a favorite. She'll find one. Okay. I personally like Dave Ramsey's resources, but there's just so many wonderful resources out there for budgeting that really it's going to be finding the one that's right for you. I would consider like the spending savings plan that we're going to send you a great starting point. So looking at, where everything is right now and where you want to be. So recognizing, what's my income? What am I currently spending? What do I want to be spending? So those things are all going to change and vary. And that is one nice thing about having an online plan or maybe an app to use, because you can constantly change those numbers. So if we go on to the next slide, at the top of the plan that we're going to send you, we want you to write down a goal. So what is one goal that you have for yourself? So if you want to write in the chat, Neely or Mary, a goal that you have for your money right now, that would be wonderful. So having that goal is going to give you an incentive to be able to stick to your spending plan. So personally, I'd mentioned about I'm cutting back on how much I spend on coffee. I know I spend way too much on coffee and I would like that money to go towards something more worthwhile. So I have a vacation coming up in June. But right now, the money I'm saving will go towards my vacation. And I see Neely included in the chat that she is going to save for Christmas and birthdays. Yes, exactly. So saving and making those small changes can really add up over a year's time. So once you have your plan in front of you, and we'll email this to you, the fillable form, write down your goal, write down your income. This can be, if you're a single person, write down your single income, or if you're a couple living in a household with multiple incomes, write this information down. Mary shared she's retiring in a year and her goal is to get in the groove of budgeting. Yes, right now is a great time. If you know what you're going to be living off in a couple of months or a year, live according to your means of your retirement income. So start practicing that now, and any extra money that you have that you're not using, put that aside in a savings account. So we have our goal written down, and next we're going to move on to looking at our income. So we may have many sources of income. We could have child support, Social Security, unemployment benefits, food stamps, and then our regular wage. So we want to include everything. And then in our fillable form, if you have this income 4 times, it's going to calculate it out for you. If you get paid twice a month or monthly, it's going to total that income for you, which is one benefit to using the fillable form. All right. And then we have one more. We're going to look at just an example on the next slide of what our case study would be. So if we have a hypothetical income of $1,651, the form is going to multiply that by 2 for me, since I'm saying every 2 weeks I'm getting paid that amount. So that's going to bring me to $3,303. When I complete a budget, just a recommendation for you all, I always complete it based on my take-home pay, especially depending on how the budget is set up. So if it has a place for you to deduct like your cost of insurance or retirement, then you can include that in there. But I would include if I had this budget, my take-home pay. All right, after I've added up all my income, I'm going to pass this off to Marilyn, and she's going to talk to you about those regular expenses to include.
All right, so we are going to talk about regular expenses. And so these are the expenses that you have each month. And so as you can see on the form, we want to make sure that we put those expenses on our spending savings plan in that next section. And this will make a little bit more sense when you can see the whole paper together. And so typically these regular expenses are the same amount each month. And so it's easy to predict. But like things like our utility bills, they can vary from month to month. And something cool that our electric company does here, they actually can do an average. And so they can take your past couple of years and they can provide an average for you. And then you can pay that average. So that might be one way to help you maintain more of a regular expense. So I've looked at that. I've done it in the past, and it was helpful to me when I was trying to get things in line. So that might be one thing you can do. And again, you can just, if you don't want to do that, you can always just look at your past expenses, and you know that probably during the summer it's going to go up because you've got your AC on more. And then in the winter, again, you've got your heat on. So you might be able to make some of those adjustments yourself, but you can always work with your utility company too and see if they have that option, because that may be helpful to you. So then, to help you plan, it's good to have these things written down. And I even like to write down the dates of my bills. So I have a calendar. I do a lot of online stuff, but I have when my bills are due on my calendar. Most of mine are auto pay, but I still like to have that date just so I can keep up with my check register. Yes, I still keep up with the check register. And if you're looking up here, you've got kind of this green outline. And so these boxes emphasize how you should plan on saving a portion of your income each week. And so if you remember, or last week we played a bean game, and so we gave you 20 beans, and you had to determine where those beans went. And then we reduced those by 13 or to 13. And so one of the groups on there on our bean game was that we were asking, were you putting anything in savings? And so this is what we're doing. We're just trying to think about, if we save for some reason on something, like let's say we turn our thermostat up a couple degrees and we save on our electric bill, then maybe we can put that in savings. But we really want to start thinking about adding savings as an expenditure that for each month. And then the other cool thing about the sheet when you get it is that it'll allow you to track which bills you have paid and how much you've paid. So you can put the amount there in that paid column. And this is a way to track your spending and a way to track your spending and just make it easier to predict. So you do a few of these a few months and you can start to predict some of these too. I think that's it. And then down at the bottom, it will total those up for you. So down here, if you use the fillable ones, it will total them up. So on this one, this is, again, just kind of an example or case study. So you can see the housing amount there is $1,225. Your car payment is $500. Your insurance is $187. The phone bill is $120. And then your cable TV, $120, and your credit card's $130. And again, you may call your utility, like to me, I'm not sure what kind of phone bill they're talking about there, but you can always call your companies and see if they've got any specials. Sometimes often if you call and just see what kind of new specials, maybe they can even reduce that amount. I know our phone bill, if you provide certain documentation that if you work for certain companies, they can also reduce that cost too. So just a tip that you may try if you, particularly with phone bills, and I don't know about cable service. I still have regular and TV antenna, but you might be able to do that with your cable provider too, to see if there's any specials. So that might be another way to reduce some and then add that into your savings. Again, we want to just pay attention to those boxes outlined in green. And so we want to make sure there is, in this example, there isn't, but again, we really would like to encourage you to start saving, putting some money back either weekly or monthly. So now we're going to talk about expenses controlled by you. So those were those expenses, those fixed expenses that really there's not much we can do. Like I said, I do encourage you though to call your utility companies or phone companies, because sometimes they do have deals, but we don't know until we call. But I want to talk about expenses controlled by you. And so these are called flexible expenses, and they're not necessarily the same amount from week to week or month to month. These could be those impulsive purchases, like you see something cool on TV, then the latest, greatest new pillow, and now you have to have it, right? Or maybe things don't go your way and you need some retail therapy. So those are what we would call those controllable expenses, and that falls into the impulse or like an impulse purchase. And that could be classified as one of those spending leaks that we talked about last week. And so if you remember what we said about such things as cars, while they're a necessity, the difference between a need and a want is buying more than what is needed. So, your 10-year-old car, it's perfectly, it gets you from point A to point B. So you don't necessarily need the latest and greatest. Again, that goes back to those wants and needs. And I think it is Dave Ramsey. I've listened to some of his stuff, like Sarah, and I believe he had like a really high dollar car, and he traded one for an older car. And so that was one way that his family was able to save some money. So we want to estimate the amount that we plan to spend in each of these categories for a week, and then multiply that by 4 for the monthly amount, and place that amount in each square under the column. And so that's where our monthly amount planned. So right here, that second column. And as you purchase items, you can track how much you have spent by filling in the amount. So that's that second column there. And this is another way to track your spending. And then all those amounts will be added in your total down here. And then some people do use the envelope method too. So some people, I do believe that is the Dave Ramsey principle. They put in different amounts, and you can write on, that you're going to spend $100 on retail therapy or whatever. And so that might be another way if you don't necessarily want to do this kind of worksheet. You could do something similar to the envelopes. Take a second to see what we've got in the chat. Thank you. So in the chat, it asks about how is medical controlled? And if you know that you need to have a medical procedure, it's always wise to call around to different hospitals, check the prices. Same way with medications. And then something too, I'll let you know about, there is a Good RX. I guess it's a company, but if you are looking for shopping around for prescription prices, Good RX is a good one to look at. They have cards a lot of times at the retail stores, and it does pay to shop around, because I know I was able to get some prescriptions cheaper at a Kroger due to using that Good RX card than my normal pharmacy. So that's definitely something you can look at too. Yes, Kroger. So, and here's just an example again. So those food groceries, so we're probably buying for a family at $575, transportation, $150, our clothing, $219, personal and recreation, $581, those medical supplies, so maybe a prescription, $44, cigarettes, $180. One I don't see on here is alcohol, but that's definitely, that could be one that you would put under that expenditure controlled by you. And then overdraft, so $70 there. Any questions about this? I'd put alcohol under medical. Okay. So we talked a little bit about those occasional expenditures early, and so you will be getting an occasional expenditure worksheet. And so you will want to add those into spending savings plan too. And so I know in the chat we talked about the saving for Christmas. We also had the examples of saving for birthdays. So again, that worksheet will help you to be able to put that in this. Where does this other spending savings plan? So that'll help guide you. And as you guys get into this, if you need help, feel free to reach out to myself, Molly, or Sarah, and we can kind of walk you through some of this, because it is a lot of information. But we definitely want to help you be successful in creating a spending savings plan. All right, so then this will be, again, it'll kind of make more sense on our PowerPoint. We've had to break it down on a smaller bite so it's easier to see. And so this will make a little bit more sense when you see the entire picture. But it will track those things. So you'll want to enter the total monthly income from page 1. Then you're going to enter and subtract the total saved each month from page 1 for the subtotal. Enter your total regular monthly expense from page 1 and then subtract from your subtotal. And then enter that total monthly amount spent on controllable expenses and subtract from the subtotal. Then finally, you'll enter your occasional monthly expenses and then subtract it to determine what's left. And so here's just an example. The total monthly income, $3,033. The total monthly regular expenses, $2,187. And you subtract those controllable expenses, and that gives you what's left, that $974.56. All right. So any questions about that? I know it's kind of hard to not seeing them all together, but so just some things kind of to remember. Your every spending savings plan should show that you are able to keep your expenses within the size of your income. So if your expenses are greater than your income, then you have 3 choices. So you can either increase your income by maybe getting a second job, side hustle, whatever you want to call it. You can reduce your expenses, or some of 1 and 2. And so you can't achieve your goal if you do not have a balanced spending savings plan. One way to reduce your expenses is to stop spending leaks. Again, we talked about spending leaks last time. So if you haven't had a chance to review session 1, I encourage you to do that. A lot of those spending links, though, just to give you some examples, we talked about like eating out, retail therapy, shopping, things like that. What else? Those are probably the biggest ones. And again, like I mentioned earlier, just the pet supplies too. I love my fur babies, but I'm going to try to see, like I said, maybe we're going to experiment with some different litters and see if I can find something that I like and that'll be a little bit less expensive. So we'll just look for ways. And I think too, just really being honest about those spending leaks. So when you're tracking, make sure that you're writing and keeping receipts and of things that even if you're running in and if you're purchasing lotto tickets or a Polar Pop, I mean, it's just 79 or 99 cents here and there with those Polar Pops, but they add up. So I would definitely encourage you to be honest when you're tracking and looking at spending leaks. Yeah, it will be hard to reduce expenditures for the fur baby and even the granddaughter, but there's some things, I mean, you know, there's a lot of great secondhand stores. So if you're getting clothing, that might be a thing to look at. I know Once Upon a Child's really good. It's yard sale season. I'm not sure, you know, check with your local jurisdictions. I don't know with COVID how they are handling yard sales, but you know, there's ways that we can still splurge and provide gifts, but maybe just not brand new, maybe just gently used. Do we have any questions or comments? That's fine. All right. Let's see. Do you, I'm going to take it a little step farther. I know somebody had mentioned what their goal was, but I just kind of want to revisit that. And so either Molly or Sarah, feel free to jump in too, but I just really I want to get you all thinking. I like presentations where I feel like I have something to do. I mean, I like getting information, but I really just want to challenge you all to think about a goal that you can work on. And so if you don't mind, put that in the chat or feel free to unmute and just let us know what goal that you plan to work on over the next week or 2 weeks. And like I said, if you get, when you get these sheets, feel free to reach out to us too, and we can help walk you through the information because we definitely want to help you succeed.
Mary said, stop impulse buying, period. Go buy my list only. That's a great goal. I'll share one of mine right now. In the month of April, my goal was to make 0 Amazon purchases. I did not accomplish that goal, but I did greatly cut down. So progress, and that's part of goal setting, is sometimes you're going to fumble, but you just got to keep trying. And even if you don't accomplish your original goal, I know that I spent less on Amazon. So I was excited to have reached part of my goal.
I think that's great. And you were talking a little bit too, Mary, about the shopping list. And so if you're not, I would challenge you all to maybe even do some meal planning too. I don't know how you put your list together, but I really try to meal plan at least for a week, because if not, it seems like I am at the store 2 or 3 times a week, and then I am impulse buying. So for me, it does take a little bit of effort to sit down and think about, you know, it's Taco Tuesday or, you know, those types of things. But I think it has helped me in the long run. And click list too could be, I don't know if anybody's had experience with that, but.
I like to do my meal planning around what's on sale at the grocery store. So I like to look at the ad before I go to the store and see what they have on sale. And then I'll be like, okay, you know, if they have pork loin for $1.99, then we'll probably have pork loin that week. So then, you know, you feel like you're getting a good deal and you already have your meal planned. So it's kind of a win-win, save money and get some meals planned.
Mary, I see where you mentioned COVID has saved you money from not actual impulse buying at the store. Did you find that you were ordering your groceries ahead and doing pickup, or were you doing like a delivery service? What was your method there? I'm curious.
And while she's formulating her answer, I did provide a link in the chat for a survey evaluation, and we'll send this out as well. But this just helps us provide information to our funders and helps us provide better programming. So if you could take a minute to fill that out, it's greatly appreciated. You know, I didn't know Aldi's did delivery. She said she did both. That's interesting. I'll have to look at that.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that either. And Walmart pickup's great because tying into what Molly and Marilyn shared, if you're able to meal plan and look at the sales, then you're not going to also have the impulse buying because you're having it only what you purchased in your cart delivered to your trunk of your car. That's great.
I have to leave that up. I like that.
Good job, Neely, working ahead. Sorry, Marilyn.
No,
go ahead.
I was going to say that too. So that's awesome.
Flip app. Okay. I don't know that I've heard of that one. Molly, Marilyn, have you heard of the Flip app?
No, but I was going to check it out.
I know that earlier, I think it was Mary that mentioned being like a Kroger member. I have found that has saved me a lot of money.
Well, that's all we had in terms of presentation. We're happy to stick around and answer questions or just chit chat. It doesn't have to be about where does your money go. It could. So, but we certainly appreciate you joining us. And again, if you get that, Sarah will be sending out a link to session 2 with the worksheets. And if you get those worksheets and just need some help walking through them or have questions, feel free to reach out. That's what we're here for. Ollie, Sarah, anything else?
Thank you, Mary and Neely, for participating today.
Thank you guys. We appreciate it.